President Trump arrived in London Monday night ahead of 2 days of scheduled meetings with NATO allies. The meetings will celebrate the 70th anniversary of NATO and come just days after the group agreed on a new funding formula. That funding formula reduces the amount the United States will contribute to the organization's common fund. President Trump has previously criticized NATO spending and slammed other countries for not spending more on their own defense. Let's bring in David Jackson. He's a White House correspondent for USA Today. David, thanks very much for being with us. What is behind the timing of this move?
Well, NATO trying to placate President Trump, who's often complained that the U.S. is paying too much of the freight. So under this deal, this is basically the NATO operating budget, their office expenses, if you will. The U.S. has been paying around 22% of those for many years. Under this deal, that percentage will be reduced to 16%. And Germany, which is the other large nation that's part of NATO, will also start picking up more of the tab.
Well, you write that the president's move to reduce NATO aid is largely symbolic. So how significant is this, and what does it achieve for the Trump administration?
Well, it doesn't achieve a whole lot because we're not talking a whole lot of money. I mean, where the big money with NATO is in their defense budgets, and that's another issue entirely. But it gives President Trump a bragging point, if you will. He's already talked about it on Twitter today. He's basically saying that he's reduced the U.S. expenses on NATO and that other countries are picking up the slack. So it is pretty perfunctory, but it does give an opportunity for everybody to say, hey, we're all getting along.
President Trump has rallied against NATO contributions in the past, but he's not the first U.S. president to do so. What more can you tell us about that?
Well, you're right. Trump isn't the first president to complain about NATO, not about the U.S. paying too much of NATO's budget. It really goes back all the way even to the formation of the organization back in 1949. Of course, that was right after World War II, and other countries simply couldn't afford to pay for the NATO budget. But the U.S. has always carried most of the freight for NATO's budget over the years, and presidents from Richard Nixon on up to Barack Obama have complained about it. And in fact, the new formula was developed during the Obama administration in order to have more countries pay more. And that's the plan that President Trump is pushing, and in his view, he's pushing it successfully.
So how are other NATO member countries responding to the administration's move, and what does it mean for them?
Well, it basically means an increase in their defense budget. The way NATO works is that each country spends part of a percentage of its gross domestic product contributing money to its own national defense, and that national defense is used in concert with other NATO countries. So basically it means an increase in all of these countries' defense budgets. Now, some of these countries aren't very pleased with that because it's a big expense and a lot of their citizens don't want to pay that kind of money. But it's something I think a lot of people feel like they have to be done in order to make nice with the United States, because after all, the United States continues to be the driving force behind NATO.
All right, David Jackson in Washington for us. David, thank you.
All right, thank you.